Welcome, folks. Today we're diving deep into that dramatic shift in maritime power, how the Houthis, once dismissed as mere desert rebels, managed to effectively shut down Israel's key port, Eilat.
Right, it's almost like a turn of events straight out of a thriller, isn't it?
Absolutely. Think about it. Eilat, which used to be a vital gateway for Israeli commerce, is now a ghost town. Cranes are idle, dock workers are out of work, and commercial vessels are practically avoiding the area like a bad
Yeah,
rumor.
it's almost hard to believe what shifted here. How did a group that, until recently, seemed so peripheral, manage to deal such a blow?
The Houthis, officially known as Yemen's Ansarullah movement, have evolved from using drones and dinghies in symbolic strikes to full-on deadly enforcement. Their recent actions, like sinking not just one but two ships, the Magic Seas and the Eternity Sea, are a game changer in how we see non-state actors operating at sea.
So it's not just a symbolic show anymore. It's real, tangible damage to a major port. But, isn't it a bit overblown saying they've shut down Eilat completely?
That's a great point to dig into. While shut down might sound absolute, it really signifies a massive disruption.
Exactly.
Eilat isn't operating as usual. Commercial traffic has plummeted, severely impacting Israel's supply chains and economic flows.
And given that Eilat was a strategic hub for maritime trade, this disruption, as you mentioned, sends shockwaves across not just the Israeli economy, but potentially the broader shipping world too.
Yep, exactly. I mean, think about it. It's like someone has blocked the main highway into a bustling city. Suddenly, goods, services, and entire revenue streams are stuck.
And then there's the international angle. This isn't just an isolated incident, but a statement by the Houthis, right? Something along the lines of, until Israel makes some changes, we're not stopping.
Exactly, and that sends a strong message in terms of non-state actors asserting influence. It's not every day you see a group historically seen as fringe become a central player in controlling maritime routes.
True. But here's something I've been pondering. Wouldn't shutting down a port like Eilat have repercussions for the Houthis themselves? I mean, compared to traditional state actors, can a non-state group sustain such actions over time without overrunning their own strategic capacity?
That's a valid critique. In the short run, the economic blow to Israel is huge.
Yes.
But long term, sustaining a blockade and creating a full-blown supply chain disruption might require resources and strategic calculations that could, in turn, stretch the Houthis more thinly than anticipated.
Right? And one might argue that the global shipping industry has its own mechanisms for adaptation. If Eilat remains as a no-go zone for an extended period, then alternative ports could emerge, which might dilute the Houthis' leverage.
That's true. But let's remember the immediate impact here. Israel has seen an 85% drop in activity at the port, as highlighted by Reuters, and the economic ripples are real and rapid.
And along with the economic hit, we're also looking at geopolitical ripples, influences over regional power balances, the perception of non-state militant capabilities, and even changes in maritime insurance rates, as some reports noted.
Oh, exactly. Insurance in the Red Sea has been soaring with these alarming incidents. It's like the maritime world now has to factor in a whole new risk profile.
Right. Then you have the ship that sank it, a sort of poetic irony. The ship that, after all this political and economic build-up, ultimately delivered the final blow by being sunk. It brings a sort of finality to the narrative of the port's decline.
Yeah, and that phrase, the ship finally that sank it, carries a dual meaning, both literally, in terms of the recent sinking of a ship carrying Israel-bound cargo, and metaphorically, marking the collapse of the vibrancy of the port itself.
And isn't it fascinating how such actions, initially brushed off as mere rebellion, have now morphed into acts of strategic warfare with serious economic consequences?
Absolutely. It's like watching an underdog rise up and change the rules of the game entirely. The Houthis, by this act, are forcing a re-evaluation of how maritime security is considered in modern warfare.
Speaking of modern warfare, what do you make of the extensive media coverage and various sources that have weighed in on this, like Reuters, AP, and even some local Middle Eastern outlets?
It's interesting to see such a convergence of different media narratives. Each source sheds light on different facets: economic impacts, military balances, and even the humanitarian side with dock workers losing their jobs.
True, and that mixture of economic and geopolitical consequences paints a really complex picture. I mean, on one hand, you have the economic downturn and supply chain disruption. On the other, a dramatic shift in military strategy and, dare I say, a challenge to the status quo.
Yeah, and it's like a domino effect. One act of sabotage or enforcement ripples through multiple sectors: energy, international trade, regional diplomacy, even global shipping norms.
Right. Though I do respectfully challenge something here. Could it be that the coverage might be a bit too alarmist? I mean, sometimes in such scenarios, there's a tendency to amplify the narrative.
Fair critique. There is always a risk of sensationalism when narratives are built around dramatic events. But the consistent
Exactly.
thread we've seen across multiple credible sources, like the Wall Street Journal and Al Jazeera, is the undeniable economic shock and long-term strategic implications for Israel.
Yes, and then there's that added dimension of non-state dynamics. Who would have thought that a group like the Houthis could disrupt not just regional trade, but have a say in global maritime security?
It definitely challenges the conventional narrative of state-controlled conflict. It's like an underdog rewriting the textbook on warfare and strategy.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that Israel, traditionally seen as a powerhouse in defense and economic resilience, now faces vulnerabilities that were, until recently, unexpected.
Yeah, that's the crux of it. The port shutdown isn't just an isolated economic event. It's a wake-up call, almost a signal that in the modern age, even non-state groups can exert outsized influence on global trade routes.
I also find it curious how quickly the repercussions were felt. With the port being such a lifeline, its dormancy has left many in the maritime industry scrambling for alternatives.
Exactly. It's like pulling the rug out from under a well-established routine. Dock workers, shipping companies, even local businesses, everyone's reeling from the shock, and the impact reverberates right through Israel's economy.
Right. With responses now coming from various quarters, like attempts to lay off staff and reroute shipping, does this mark a long-term strategic shift, or is it a temporary setback for the Israeli port?
Good question. In the short term, it's clearly catastrophic. But whether this downturn evolves into a permanent strategic recalibration or simply forces Israel to invest heavily in security measures remains to be seen.
True. And if it does become permanent, we might be looking at a reconfiguration of maritime commerce in this region. New ports might emerge, new alliances might form, and the global trade map will be redrawn.
Absolutely. It calls to mind that analogy of a bustling market suddenly shutting its doors, forcing everyone to find a new place to trade their goods. The disruption is, without a doubt, monumental.
Yeah, it also underscores the power of symbolic acts. What began as resistance using relatively small-scale tactics has now morphed into an action that alters economic and geopolitical realities.
Precisely. It's a wake-up call for those who might underestimate the influence of non-state actors. This event challenges long-held assumptions about who holds power and how that power is exercised on the global stage.
And it leaves us wondering, what's next? Will other ports or territories experience similar tactics, and how will states adapt their strategies in response?
That's the million-dollar question. The maritime world, and indeed the entire balance of regional power, could be on the brink of significant change. It's an evolving scenario and one to watch very closely.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for the insightful discussion on this critical development. You've really unpacked the layers behind what might seem like just a port shutdown at first glance.
Always a pleasure to dig into these consequential topics. Stay tuned as we continue to follow the ripple effects of this dramatic shift in maritime affairs.
Yep, indeed.